the massacre of the innocents.
Because I am bewildered, because I must decide, because my decision must be in conformity with nature and necessity, let me honor those through whom my nature is by necessity what it is. To fortune, that I have become tetrarch, that I have escaped assassination, that at 60 my head is clear and my digestion sound. To my father, for the means to gratify my love of travel and study. To my mother, for a straight nose. To Eva, my colored nurse, for regular habits. To Professor Lighthouse for his lectures on the Peloponnesian War. To my secretary, Miss Button, for admitting that my speeches were inaudible. There is no visible disorder, no crime what could be more innocent than the birth of an artisan's child. Today has been one of those perfect winter days, cold, brilliant, and utterly still, when the bark of a shepherd's dog carries for miles, and the great wild mountains come up quite close to the city walls, and the mind feels intensely awake. And this evening, as I stand at this window high up in the citadel, there is nothing in the whole magnificent panorama of plain and mountains to indicate that the empire is threatened by a danger more dreadful than any invasion of Tartars or racing camels or conspiracy of the Praetorian Guard. Barges are unloading soil, fertilizer at the river wharves. Soft drinks and sandwiches may be had in the inns at reasonable prices. Allotment gardening has become popular. The highway to the coast goes straight up over the mountains. And the truck drivers no longer carry guns. Things are beginning to take shape. It's a long time since anyone stole the park benches or murdered the swans. There are children in this province who have never seen a louse, shopkeepers who have never handled a counterfeit coin, women of 40 who have never hidden in a ditch except for fun. Yes, in 20 years I have managed to do a little, not enough of course. There are villages only a few miles from here where they still believe in witches. There isn't a single town where a good bookshop would pay. One could count on the fingers of one hand the people capable of solving the problems of Achilles and the tortoise. Still, it is a beginning. 20 years, the darkness has been pushed back a few inches. And what, after all, is the whole empire, with its few thousand square miles in which it is possible to lead the rational life? But a tiny patch of light compared with those immense areas of barbaric night that surround it on all sides, that incoherent wilderness of rage and terror, where Mongolian idiots are regarded as sacred, and mothers who give birth to twins are instantly put to death, where malaria is treated by yelling, where warriors of superb courage obey the commands of hysterical female impersonators, where the best cuts of meat are reserved for the dead, where if a white blackbird has been seen, no more work may be done that day, where it is firmly believed that the world was created by a giant with 3 heads, or that the motions of the stars are controlled from the liver of a rogue elephant. Yet even inside this little civilized patch itself, where, at the cost of heaven knows how much grief and bloodshed, it has been made unnecessary for anyone over the age of 12 to believe in fairies, or that first causes reside in mortal and finite objects, so many are still homesick for that disorder, where every passion formerly enjoyed a frantic license. Caesar flies to his hunting lodge pursued by ennui. In the faubourgs of the capital, society grows savage, corrupted by silks and scents, softened by sugar and hot water, made insolent by theaters and attractive slaves. And everywhere, including this province, new prophets spring up every day to sound the old barbaric note. I have tried everything. I have prohibited the sale of crystals and Ouija boards. I have slapped a heavy tax on playing cards. The courts are empowered to sentence alchemists to hard labor in the mines. It says it is a statutory offense to turn tables or feel bumps, but nothing is really effective. How can I expect the masses to be sensible when, for instance, to my certain knowledge, the captain of my own guard wears an amulet against the evil eye, and the richest merchant in the city consults a medium over every important transaction? Legislation is helpless against the wild prayer of longing that rises day in, day out from all these households under my protection. O God, put away justice and truth, for we cannot understand them and do not want them. Eternity would bore us dreadfully. Leave thy heavens and come down to our earth of water clocks and hedges. Become our uncle, look after our baby, amuse grandfather, escort madam to the opera, help Willie with his homework, introduce Muriel to a handsome naval officer. Be interesting and weak like us. We will love you as we love ourselves. Reason is helpless, and now even the poetic compromise no longer works. All those lovely fairy tales in which Zeus, disguising himself as a swan or a bull or a shower of rain or what have you, lay with some beautiful woman and begot a hero. For the public has grown too sophisticated. Under all the charming metaphors and symbols, it detects the stern command: be and act heroically. Behind the myth of divine origin, it senses the real human excellence that is a reproach to its own baseness. So with a bellow of rage, it kicks poetry downstairs and sends for prophecy. Your sister has just insulted me. I asked for a God who should be as like me as possible. What use to me is God whose divinity consists in doing difficult things that I cannot do, or saying clever things that I cannot understand? The God I want and intend to get must be someone I can recognize immediately, without having to wait and see what he says or does. There must be nothing in the least extraordinary about him. Produce him at once, please. I'm sick of waiting. Today, apparently, judging by the trio who came to see me this morning with an ecstatic grin on their scholarly faces, the job has been done. God has been born, they cried. We have seen him ourselves. The world is saved. Nothing else matters. One needn't be much of a psychologist to realize that if this rumor is not stamped out now, in a few years it is capable of diseasing the whole empire. And one doesn't have to be a prophet to predict the consequences if it should. Reason will be replaced by revelation. Instead of rational law, objective truth, perceptible to any who will undergo the necessary intellectual discipline, and the same for all, knowledge will degenerate into a riot of subjective visions, feelings in the solar plexus, induced by undernourishment, angelic images generated by fevers or drugs, dreams, warnings inspired by the sound of falling water. Whole cosmologies will be created out of some forgotten personal resentment. Complete epics written in private languages and daubs of school children, ranked above the greatest masterpieces. Idealism will be replaced by materialism. Priapus will only have to move to a good address and call himself Eros to become the darling of middle-aged women. Life after death will be an eternal dinner party, where all the guests are 20 years old. Diverted from its normal and wholesome outlet in patriotism and civic or family pride, the need of the materialistic masses for some visible idol to worship will be driven into totally unsocial channels where no education can reach it. Divine honors will be paid to silver teapots, shallow depressions in the earth, names on maps, domestic pets, ruined windmills, even in extreme cases, which will become increasingly common, to headaches or malignant tumors or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Justice will be replaced by pity as the cardinal human virtue, and all fear of retribution will vanish. Every corner boy will congratulate himself. I'm such a sinner that God had come down in person to save me. I must be a devil of a fellow. Every crook will argue, I like committing crimes. God likes forgiving them. Really, the world is admirably arranged. And the ambition of every young cop will be to secure a deathbed repentance. The new aristocracy will consist exclusively of hermits, bums, and permanent invalids. The rough diamond, the consumptive whore, the bandit who is good to his mother, the epileptic girl who has a way with animals, will be the heroes and heroines of the new tragedy when the general, the statesman, and the philosopher have become the butt of every farce and satire. Naturally, this cannot be allowed to happen. Civilization must be saved, even if that means sending for the military, as I suppose it does. How dreary. Why is it that in the end, civilization always has to call on these professional tidiers to whom it is all one, whether it be Pythagoras or a homicidal lunatic that they're instructed to exterminate? Oh dear, why couldn't this wretched infant be born somewhere else? Why can't people be sensible? I don't want to be hard. Why can't they see that the notion of a finite God is absurd? Because it is. And suppose, just for the sake of argument, that it isn't. That this story is true, that this child is in some inexplicable manner both God and man. And he grows up, lives, and dies without committing a single sin. Would that make life any better? On the contrary, it would make it far, far worse. It would only mean this, that once having shown them how, God would expect every man, whatever his fortune, to lead a sinless life in the flesh and on earth. Then indeed would the human race be plunged into madness and despair. And for me personally at this moment, it would mean that God had given me the power to destroy himself. I refuse to be taken in. He cannot play such a horrible practical joke. Why should he dislike me so? I've worked like a slave, ask anyone you like. I read all official dispatches without skipping. I've taken elocution lessons. I've hardly ever taken bribes. How dare he allow me to decide? I've tried to be good. I brush my teeth every night. I haven't had sex for a month. I object. I'm a liberal. I want everyone to be happy. I wish I'd never been born.
Morristown.